Madam Toastmaster, Toastmasters, and fellow speaker. I don't think I've ever taken quite as interesting or informative or fun trip as the time I went spelunking with my junior high school biology club. That was a long time ago in junior high school, but I still remember it pretty well. And since I was with the biology club, my biology teacher went along, and it was informative as well. She made sure of that. And I remember learning two things during that trip and on the bus on the way there. Two main secrets of caves. Two reasons why caves are the way they are. When we first went into the cave, it began as a crevice with the ceiling about 7 feet high, and you could walk. As we went on further, it got darker and darker, and the ceiling quickly got lower. Pretty soon you couldn't walk anymore, you had to crawl. And soon after that, you couldn't crawl. Crawling wasn't sufficient. You had to get on your stomach and kind of move yourself along with your hands. And after about 10 feet of that, it suddenly opened into a big cavern that was completely black. And as I crawled down and plopped down onto the floor, I was inside the cave. It was completely dark, but the first thing I noticed was the feel of the floor. It was muddy. And as I turned on my flashlight, I noticed that the walls were glistening. The ceiling was wet. Everything was wet. But when we went on to other rooms of the cave, some of the floors had a foot or more of water standing at the bottom of them. And that was the first thing that I learned about caves, was that water is the most important thing. Water is the reason that they exist. Since this is a visual aid speech, preparing some visual aids. As water falls down as rain, it drops, or even as it's sitting in a lake or a pond or a stream, it absorbs carbon dioxide. And when it absorbs carbon dioxide, it forms a very dilute solution of carbonic acid. So each raindrop, each portion of water is very slightly acidic. Limestone is made up of crystals of calcium carbonate. When it hits the limestone, it forms another compound, calcium bicarbonate, which is very soluble in water. The calcium bicarbonate, as it's in water, well, in essence, the acid dissolves a very tiny piece of the rock away. And by itself, this wouldn't do anything. But when you have a limestone layer that's deep in the earth, some geologic forces act on it. The layers can be buckled and cracked, and the water forms a pathway that can go down. Water with this light acid in it comes from this lake or the rain or wherever it originates from. It goes down through the layers and through the cracks and crevices, and just simply passes by the limestone layer. And as it passes by, this process occurs, and the acid eats a little bit of the rock away. Crevices get bigger and bigger, and the cave starts to form. Now, at the very end of it, some of the more resistant rock layers above it give way because there's no longer any limestone to hold it up. And some rocks that are in the limestone layer are washed away, and the completed cave is formed. One thing that everybody really wanted to see when we went into the cave was life. We wanted to see some bats or salamanders or snails or something like that. And we never saw too much. Our guide told us that there were bats in there, but we weren't allowed to go into the portions that they were hibernating because the sounds that we'd make and the vibrations that we would make would disturb them and could cause them to fly out, and they would become disoriented and wouldn't be able to find the cave again. He was a lot more worried about the bats than with us. Bats, he said, were just not very dangerous creatures. But we didn't see too much. That doesn't mean that there isn't cave life. In fact, there's an abundance of different species of cave life. There are the salamanders that have a slightly pinkish color. Pinkish not because the skin is pink, but because the capillaries underneath the skin are red. You can see the blood flowing through. Its skin is completely transparent. In fact, most cave-dwelling creatures have transparent skin. And there's a couple forms of types of snails, shrimp, that are almost completely invisible. And the only way you can find them is to take a flashlight, shine it on a rock, and move the flashlight around and watch for changes in the shadow. It's the only way they can be detected. This abundance of life was the second mystery of the caves. Above ground, well, all life forms need energy from something. Animals eat plants. Plants get their energy from the sunlight. And above ground, chlorinated plants get their energy from the sunlight, and that's the origin of the energy of the food chain. Underground caves, there's no light in caves, and there's no, that source is not there. So it's a mystery as to how life gets started. That was the second discovery that I made of caves. The source of all life in caves is actually a substance known as guano, which is Guano. In layman's terms, it is that there's this bat dung starts off the food chain, or a complex food chain. Water lice feed directly on the guano. Flatworms feed on the water lice, and the larger forms come from that. So that was the second discovery that I made about caves. Guano was very popular with the kids on the trip, and we even had t-shirts with guano imprinted on them. And there was many guano jokes that were distributed along the bus afterwards. Things like Spelunker's just guano, have fun. So those are the two secrets of caves that I learned. Slightly acidic water and water.
I will have to say that the first thing I ever learned about spelunking in my life was what it meant. And spelunking means poking around in places